Hi, my name is Mindy, and this is my husband James, and our story begins when we got married in 2004. Everything was going great. We were high school sweethearts. We were so excited to be together and to spend our life together. James is a youth minister, so we were spending a lot of time with the youth group and going on trips and just having fun. It started to get to a point where I was ready to have a baby. We had both knew that we wanted to start a family, but just wasn't that time. You know, a couple of years later, we had a really good friend that she got pregnant, and I started still trying to push James a little bit more to have a baby, and he was still like, no, not happening. It wasn't until that we went and visited her in the hospital to see her baby.
I remember that. It was like they just had the baby. I got to hold it, and it was like it just clicked. Mindy had been trying to convince me, and I kept telling her that when the time was right, I would know it, and I knew it. I was ready.
Mm-hmm. That was in September of 2006. When we got home from the hospital that night, James told me that we could start trying in January of 2007. So, of course, I was excited, counting down the days. I couldn't wait. And 2007 comes, and here we go. And every month passed, and nothing was happening. And emotions started, and it was getting to be a year. Coming up past a year, nothing was happening, and we were just trying, and nothing was going on. And
I remember we went through the whole question of, it's kind of bad to say, but whose fault is it? You know, who's broken? And the doctors kept telling us that neither one of us were. Everything was fine, and we just needed to wait and wait and wait.
Mm-hmm.
And we got tired of waiting.
They kept wanting us to go to specialists, and I really didn't want to go that route and have that kind of stress on me or financial stress on us. Mm-hmm. Finally, 2 years later, in 2008, we had a surprise. And June of 2008, we had a positive pregnancy test. And I'll never forget that day. We were at James's brother and his, at the time, his girlfriend, which is now our sister-in-law. We were at her apartment, and I come out of the bathroom, and I was just overwhelmed with joy and excitement. And James was asleep on the couch, and he woke up kind of in a panic because he didn't know what was going on. And
I just remember Mindy basically crawling on the floor because I think she had fallen down, and she was coming toward me just saying, I'm pregnant.
At the time, I worked for a doctor's office, and about every other day, they would check my levels. After about a week, the doctor that I worked for had referred me on to a doctor in Norman that would probably eventually be my OB doctor. So she sent me for ultrasounds, and very scary because sitting in the ultrasound and couldn't find anything, and I knew that wasn't right because if I was pregnant, you were going to have to see something, and there was nothing, and the ultrasound tech wouldn't talk to me, and just very scary. And that was on a Friday, and I remember leaving that ultrasound room asking the tech, please tell me something because I don't have any answers. And she just told me that you would have to follow up with the doctor on Monday. It was a very, very long weekend. And so we came up on...
I was at church camp that week.
Yes.
And I remember I had come back on that Friday to go to the doctor with Mindy. And it was just so tough because I had to go back and be with the students. We eventually brought them back home. But to leave Mindy on that day was just, it was tough.
It was rough. We went back to the doctor that Monday to follow up, and she gave us, results just saying that still with the ultrasound she couldn't see anything, but she just had this gut feeling that I was having an ectopic pregnancy. And we left that office that afternoon and just cried and cried and cried. And I remember telling people, everybody was asking me, what did the doctor say? What did the doctor say? And I remember the line that I just kept using was, after tomorrow, I won't be pregnant anymore because they're sending me in for a surgery to make sure that if I was having an ectopic pregnancy that they removed it because it was going to be life-threatening if they didn't.
That was probably one of the most difficult moments in our journey, I felt like, because we had wanted something so bad. And it had taken us 2 years to get what we thought we wanted, and then now all of a sudden we were being told that it wasn't what we wanted. And then on top of that, the doctor was telling us that this was potentially life-threatening for Mindy. And so I remember thinking that the thing that we had been wanting so bad we weren't having anymore. But then to think too that this person I loved so much, that her life was in danger too. And I remember when you went in for surgery just being so scared because we were let down. You were terribly emotional, but then sitting in the waiting room not knowing, it was hard.
Within a week, we went from, maybe even 2 weeks, we went from joy to just pure sadness and just didn't know where to go. And anyway, so we went on through the surgery, and sure enough, that's what it was. And they removed the ectopic pregnancy, and I had about a week of recovery, and then we picked up with our lives and went on to the journey again of trying.
One of the tough things about that was, though, that they basically told us that your chances of getting pregnant were going to be about 50% less because you had one half of your reproductive system that probably wasn't going to work.
Right. Here we are 2 years later again, and we'll get another surprise. We get another positive pregnancy test. And at this time, everything is going great. And probably 3 to 4 weeks later, things just start going bad and things start happening that aren't supposed to be happening. And so the doctor that I was seeing at that time, they took us in, had ultrasounds, and figured out that I was having a miscarriage. And it's a very lonely feeling when you're sitting in the ultrasound room and the tech is not saying a word. Had to just let it go for about 3 months, couldn't try, and just deal with our emotions.
I remember during that time, the word to describe things for me was it was like a roller coaster. We had these 2 pregnancies where we had extreme highs, but then when they tell you that things are going wrong, you have extreme low. But that wasn't even the fullness of it, because every month it was pregnancy test, low. Next month, hopes get up, low again when you take a pregnancy test and it's negative. And then to have you have these huge highs and huge lows whenever you're having a miscarriage. And for me, it was tough because it was emotional for me, but at the same time, I was trying to be there for you.
You know, we just kept getting from everybody around us, just trust God. You know, the timing, it'll happen when the timing is right, when God is ready. And you know, you trust those words and you believe those words, but in the back of your mind, you know, it's still, really? This is not how it's supposed to be. And then a year later, here we are for the 3rd time. And the spring of 2011, we get another positive pregnancy test. And it's the same kind of thing as the last one. Everything was going great. A couple of weeks into it, things start going wrong. And I believe it was this one that we left youth service one night and went straight to an ER here in our town, Shawnee. And it was a very, very bad night. We had to wait hours for an ultrasound tech to come in because it was during the evening. And ultrasound tech got there and she was not welcoming. She wasn't really friendly, so it was making it even harder because we were scared.
You were in pain.
And yes, and I was in pain, and we just kind of knew what was going on. You know, we've been there, done that, and then to have somebody come in and perform a test that just had no compassion at all was not good. And sure enough, had another miscarriage number 3. Kind of fast forward to the fall of 2011, and we are presented yet with the 4th pregnancy. And same kind of thing. I mean, it was the same as the last 3, that it ended in a miscarriage. Go on for a few months, and James and I are headed to a small group meeting one night, and James kind of gets a vision.
Yeah, I guess. I was reading a passage of scripture about the 3 Hebrew men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and I was just reading about how they were standing up for what they believed in, how they wouldn't bow down, right where they start to throw them in the fire. And King Nebuchadnezzar was talking to him, and he said, if you'll just bow down, you can get out of this. And I remember he was so angry that he turned the fire up, and it got hotter and hotter and hotter. And he said, no one can save you. Your God cannot save you from this. And I remember reading that they said, our God can save us from this fire. But even if he doesn't, we won't bow down to your statue. And it was like God hit me with that. And he said, James, you're going through a fire right now. And I know it's hard. You need to know that I can deliver you from it. But I need to know, God was telling me, I need to know that even if I don't, you're still going to follow me. So I remember talking to you in the kitchen right before we went to that small group meeting, and I said, Mindy, somehow we've got to come to a place where God knows that no matter what, we're going to follow him. And so that was a huge shift for us, I think, spiritually as a couple, where we said, okay, no matter what, no matter if we get a child or not, we're gonna follow God. And I remember during that time, we started to affirm our love for each other. My love for you doesn't depend on you having a child, and your love for me didn't depend on us having a child. And so we started to kind of grow in our relationship. We started to grow in our faith. And I remember that night going and sharing that with our small group. And those people in our group were so kind to us the whole time, and loving and supportive. And then, for them to kind of not look at us like we were crazy when we were saying those things helped a lot too, for me anyway.
Right. And, like I said, we had started the process of fostering, and we had, caseworkers coming into our house telling us what we needed to do to get our house ready to have a child to come in here that we could love and bring up like it was our own, and get them ready to go back to the home that they came from. And I remember being so scared and excited all at the same time. And we went through classes, and we made special arrangements here in our house to make all of this happen. And we even, the beginning of that year, this was the beginning of 2012, the beginning of that year, we had decided that we were going to just pursue that. We were going to stop everything else and just kind of just change direction. We weren't under any stress like we were from trying to have a baby and going through all the miscarriages. And
it's funny that you say we weren't under a lot of stress, because I feel like during that time we were at peace. And it was kind of strange because it was difficult, because we still weren't receiving what we wanted. We still felt like there was this emptiness, this thing that we longed for. But at the same time, we were at peace.
Right.
Yeah.
And, and I don't think I even realized it until just now that I said it, that we were at peace.
Yeah, we were.
And so, let's see, March of 2012, surprise, we got another pregnancy test. And I remember sitting there telling James, I can't do this again. How did this happen? We really weren't even trying. And wow, I can't go through this again.
I remember like that positive test, I almost didn't even have joy.
Right.
Because it was like, here we go again.
Here we go again.
Yeah.
And, I started thinking about the physician telling me to try a certain specialist. He was a particular fertility specialist that specialized in helping keep people pregnant. And so that had popped in my head, and I said, James, I can't do this again. I can't go on this roller coaster again. So we're going to that doctor, and I don't care how much it costs, but we're going to that doctor. And so the next day I called, I got in the very next day. And normally with this doctor, he's extremely hard to get into. And so the very next day we went in, and they assessed everything, checked blood levels that, they even came back that day and was able to tell us what was going on.
All things that they had checked before, but now we were actually starting to have some action.
Answers.
Yeah, some answers.
Because before, the physicians told me that a certain hormone level that I was producing was normal. And so we never questioned that. Well, now when we go to the specialist, they check that same level, and he says, yes, it's normal, but it's on the low end of normal. So it does not hurt for you to go ahead and take an extra dose of this medicine, which is progesterone. And so I started taking shots up until 10 weeks. And we went, I believe, weekly to the specialist so that they could do ultrasounds to make sure everything was going good. In one of the ultrasounds, they said that I was having a type of hemorrhage that was causing me to bleed. We even prayed that the hemorrhage would be healed. By the time we went back the next time to have an ultrasound, it was healed. And we even told the doctor that we prayed specifically for healing. We both think that doctor wasn't a man of faith, but whatever, we told him
well, we had
that
made
we
the
knew that it was
decision
God.
that no matter what, we were going to follow God, and we felt like that everything was lining up, everything was happening like it needed to happen where it hadn't before. And so it was just like, we have to testify that we feel like this is from God, you know. And I remember telling that doctor, you, believe it or not, are a miracle. And he kind of acted like, well, miracle, I'm not sure about that. But we knew he was. We knew that whether he was a believer or not, God was using him to do something in our lives. And so we were tremendously thankful to him and to his office, of course, but more so to God, because we were starting to see God walking with us in the middle of that fire, in the middle of that storm.
Forward 9 months later, December 6th.
Before you fast forward too far, I think it was difficult for us because I think it was maybe the third trimester before we actually started feeling like this was actually going to happen. I remember, like we said earlier, we were at peace before this pregnancy came, but after the pregnancy came, peace kind of got a little bit choppy because we were just so afraid. We were afraid the past was going to repeat itself.
I remember even family members saying, "Are y'all ever going to be excited about this?" And I remember thinking, "No, I'm not letting my guard down." And so fast forward to December 6th of 2012, and we got to meet our precious little girl, and her name is Nora Grace, and she has been a major blessing to a lot of people, and especially us. She's brought a lot of joy to a lot of people's lives that I never realized that our child would be able to impact. And
I think the biggest thing, what God had done with us and through us. We said earlier, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they said, God can deliver us from this fire, but even if he doesn't, we're going to still serve him. We're not going to bow down. We're not going to crumble. And I think that was ultimately the turning point in all of that, where we said, we're going to serve God no matter what. That at the end, it talked about how when they pulled him out of the fire, or actually whenever Nebuchadnezzar saw them in the fire, he said, how many people did we throw in the fire? And they said 3. And he said, well, there's 4 in there, and one of them looks like the Son of a God. And obviously that was Jesus walking with them. And so we felt like that we experienced that during this storm in our life. But then whenever they pulled them out, it said that their hair wasn't singed, their clothes weren't singed, and they didn't even smell like smoke. And I remember us thinking that even way back then, when we were talking with our small group, that we said, if God could just deliver us from this, if God could just do something in us to where 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, people would be able to look at us and say, there's no way they ever went through what they went through because they don't smell like smoke.
And when James told me that part of it, I remember feeling a lot of guilt when we first started talking about the story because we sat back and watched a lot of people close to us get pregnant and have babies, no problems. Not that I would want them to have a problem, but it was very hard. And so I knew that I had hindered a lot of relationships in this process because of my jealousy and my sadness. And so I didn't know if I was even going to be able to live up to that and come out of this on the other side without smelling like smoke. Yeah.
And I think though that God in his grace, he's done that. Here we are now. We have a daughter that's 15 months old. We have another child on the way. I think that people who meet us now would go, everything's exactly like they would want it to be. There's never been a problem there. But the thing is what we have the opportunity to do is say, no. We went through an amazing, incredible storm. We went through an incredible bit of fire. But here's the deal. The thing that got us through, the thing that makes us not smell like smoke, is God was with us.
Mm-hmm.
And
He definitely was, because I look back from the very, very beginning, and I don't think that I don't think I would have it any other way now. I mean, I think that I needed to go through some of these things to get to where we are now.
I think so too.
And
I was getting ready to say that the strangest thing is that as painful as all that was, and as horrible of an experience as it was, I don't know that I would trade it for anything, because we're different now. We are different. We've been through the fire. And I think about those 3 Hebrew men. They had to be different after that experience, and there's no doubt that we're different. And like I said, I wouldn't trade it. And so here we are.
Yeah.
Here we are.
It's been quite a journey, but definitely been a blessing also.
Yeah. Huge blessing.
That's it.
No matter